Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive. This week, I continue my look at Dune, Adventures in the Imperium, by talking about the three major philosophical schools that came out of the War Against the Machines. The Bene Gesserit Sisterhood, the Mentats, and the Suk Medical School. I am not talking about the Space Guild because, well, frankly, you're not likely to actually play a member of the guild. You're more likely to play an agent, and, well, frankly, the Spacing Guild falls more into galactic politics, which is my next video in this series. So, there are also some other schools, like the Bene Gesserit and the Swordmasters of Genaz, but those aren't as far-reaching as the three I'm talking about. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as I talk about the three philosophical schools. Let's start with the Mentats. The first rule of the Orange Catholic Bible, the first commandment of the dominant religion of the Imperium, is, "Thou shalt not make a machine in the image of a human mind." This means that there are no computers like we know them in the Dune setting. I mean, there are things where you might store and replay data, but there's nothing that's going to run simulations or do complex calculations. Instead, you have the Mentats. And let's start with Mentat training. Mentat training begins from a young age. There are individuals who have slightly different brain structures that makes them very suitable for Mentat training. Today, we would call these people neurodivergent. Frank Herbert just said that they had the right brain structures for Mentat training. And they would undergo intense training from a young age through adulthood that turns them into actual living computers. They're able to do complex mathematical calculations in their heads fast. They're able to process simulations. They are able to take in large amounts of information, analyze it, and produce a specific layout of information, complex pattern recognition, even limited forecasting of future possibilities based on information provided. They're basically human computers. They analyze data, they process it, and they produce reports for whoever hires them. Now, while only a small percentage of people can undergo full Mentat training, anyone can undergo a partial form of Mentat training. And it's actually quite common for those who are in high positions of nobility to undergo this, because it has certain benefits. It improves your analytical abilities, improves your perception, and overall makes you better able to make decisions. But that's pretty much the majority of what Mentats are. they tend to be advisors and spy masters. Simply because their abilities work really, really good at pattern recognition. And they don't get the emotional hang-ups on certain issues like you would see in a modern spy master. They're not going to fixate on, oh, look, someone was found dead on our doorstep. It must be this house. They're going to actually analyze the data, look at the variables, and sure, it could be that house, but it could also have just been a beggar died in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or it could be another rival house. The Mentats going to look at that from an extremely logical perspective, not from an emotional. Because their training pretty much, it doesn't suppress the emotions. It pretty much does away with them. You could say that the Mentat training produces actual psychopaths because they don't react to things in the way a normal human would, because they look at it from a logical and precise perspective. Now, moving from the Mentats, we're going to talk about the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood. What's to say about the Bene Gesserits? Well, first off, the Bene Gesserits have a supernal control over their bodies. It starts with the basic Prana Bindu training, in which they learn to control every single muscle of their body. If a Bene Gesserit wants her right eye to twitch, just so, it will. If she wants her little finger to stay out a certain way when she moves, it will. Because of this, they have, well, as I said, supreme control over their bodies. They can slow or stop their hearts. They can control their breathing. They can basically do anything with their body that they need to. And this elevates the fact that they have a style of martial arts that the Fremen call the Weirding Way. And it is a martial arts style based on extreme precision of their blows and extreme speed, because since they have such control over their bodies, they can move faster. From there, they learn other abilities in a gradual escalation. The voice, a common ability among Bene Gesserits, is a case of their control over their vocal cords and their understanding of how different people's brains work allows them to modulate the pitch, tone, timbre of their voice to speak in such a way as to compel someone to do what they say. Not everyone's going to go for this, everyone's going to be vulnerable to this, but enough people are that it's a useful ability. Of course, other things that the Bene Gesserits can do is they can control their internal body chemistry. They can change the levels of hormones that they need at certain times. If they decide they don't need a certain hormone, they're able to just go, yeah, this isn't being produced right now. This also allows them to process toxins. Sometimes through just preventing the toxin from entering into their body chemistry. Other times by making the body process the toxin into something not toxic. And this is actually important for one of their highest ranking rituals, called the agony. Basically what happens with the agony is they ingest a very specific poison. If they fail to process this poison, they die horribly. If they do process the poison, they go through a lot of pain while they're processing it, but it puts them into a mental state where they're able to take on the memories and knowledge of another Bene Gesserit who has also gone through this ritual. And when they complete it, they are now a Reverend Mother. One of the higher ranks within the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood. Bene Gesserits tend to act as, again, advisors, because they have an ability to read the truth. Read when people are telling the truth and memorize what they say, because, again, supreme control of body chemistry. Memory is chemical. And, of course, they sometimes act as bodyguards, as concubines, because the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood has this crazy goal. They want to breed a universal super being, and thus bring all peace and love to the galaxy, or something like that. Frankly, what the Kwisatz Haderach is never really explained. What their goal with this super being, it's not really described very well. But because this, Bene Gesserits also act as neutral diplomats between houses. A great way for them to broker marriages and weddings between different houses of the Landsraad to go through their selective breeding process to eventually produce the Kwisatz Haderach. And yeah, that's the Bene Gesserits. The final of the three notable philosophical schools is the Suk Medical Academy. And what really separates this from other medical schools is the Imperial conditioning. What the Imperial conditioning is it's first off the final thing one undergoes during their training at the Suk Medical School. During your whole time, you're learning philosophical studies about not doing harm to patients, stuff like that. As well as, of course, all your actual medical skills. And then, at the end, you go through several years of intense philosophical discussion. And this is all tailored to absolutely condition you to never take a human life. To, in fact, be incapable of taking a human life. It is generally considered an unbreakable conditioning. In fact, the only known case of it being broken shows up in the novels itself, and took intense work over years to break. And that is the ultimate goal of the Suk Medical School. It is to produce doctors who are the literal epitome of the Hippocratic Oath. Do no harm. They can't. Needless to say, the Suk doctors are generally going to be, well, doctors. That's kind of what they do. Now, there are people who do drop out before they achieve the Imperial conditioning, and they are still capable medical professionals. They just don't have an indoctrination via psychological discourse, brain manipulation, drug courses, etc., to be incapable of taking a human life. And that is an overview of the three main philosophical schools of the Dune universe. Next week, or my next video, I will be talking about the politics of the setting. The major houses, a little bit about the Spacing Guild and how it relates to everything. So until next video, I'd like you all to remember to have fun and keep gaming.